humans. Welcome to The Frontline, a leadership and business podcast brought to you by Peregrine Corporate Services, an Isle of Man-based fiduciary provider. My name is Martin Hall, and thanks for listening. In this podcast, we chat to an array of business leaders from different sectors to learn more about them, their market, skill sets and knowledge. We hope you enjoy. Thanks for joining me today, Damien. I appreciate your time.
No problem, Martin, and thanks a million for the opportunity to come on with you.
No worries. So a little bit of background, obviously with the accent, where did you grow up, your early education and the like?
Sure, so it wouldn't be considered certainly a Dublin accent in Ireland, Martin. So I'm from County Wicklow, which neighbours Dublin, and I was born and reared in a town in West Wicklow called Baltinglass. And so I lived there all my life up until around this time last year, and I actually moved up the road then to Blessington, which is it's just 15 minutes away from our office or our headquarters in Rathcoole. So I suppose it was a combination of things that I never thought I'd move out of Baltinglass, but just life circumstances and other opportunity presented itself, and that was it. So I went to school and was educated and all that in Baltinglass, and my family and all that they're still there, but it's only 25 minutes away, so I haven't moved too far.
And the career you're in now, is that something your family did, or were your family not in financial services?
Nothing at all. No, my father was a prison officer, and my mother, I suppose if I do have a entrepreneurial gene in me, it probably comes from her. She did have her own business, and she had a catering business for years and all of that. But my parents wouldn't have been degree educated types or academic types or anything like that. But they looked after me great and put me through college and all of that. And that's, I suppose, how we stumbled in is probably the best way to put it, into the accountancy profession.
So the college area, going to college, again, did you have in mind, obviously you have in mind what you want to do there, but was that this is a career path I want to take now?
Not really. I certainly wouldn't consider myself, and I'm sure a lot of my former classmates wouldn't consider me much of an academic either. I did what we call our leave insert in Ireland, and after that you go on to college if you want to do third level studies, and we got into business studies and we sort of branched into accountancy from there. And I think it was more of a case of which do I hate the least between accountancy, HR, marketing and something else, and that was the choice I had, and it just so happened to be accountancy. So we got our degree and all that anyway. And really then when we started, it was really when we started working, when I started working like in practice. That's really when I suppose I started to take to it, and I suppose progress reasonably quickly, and like dealing with clients and that sort of thing, and like the work. And we went on and did our ACCAs, and those were the days where quite a long struggle, where you could be working from 8:30 to 5:30, and you have to get a bus in to go to lectures in the evening, 3 evenings a week, and at the weekends, and come home. So we did that for 3 years, and we got our ACCAs, and then we went on to do in Ireland we have a tax institute as well, so we have a professional tax qualification too. So went on and did that for another 2 years, and same story, slogging away in the office during the day, and racing around Dublin city centre in the evening to get into lectures, and not getting home till 11:30 at night, sort of thing. But yeah, we did it at the time, and I wouldn't like to be doing it all over again, but that was the educational path anyway for me.
And those early years in those first jobs, I guess that was just about learning the trade, really.
Learning the trade, I suppose. I was very lucky with the job that I got into. I'm still very friendly with my former employer. We get on very well, and we still refer work to one another. And just by chance, falling in with them was definitely something that I was very lucky to come across at the point in time that I did. We worked really well together. I got great training across all disciplines. Got great exposure. They would have had a fairly significant international client base there. So I got exposed to all of that at a very early stage, and I suppose dealing with the issues and considerations and opportunities, of course, as well, for, working with international businesses and international investors looking to set up and do business in Ireland. Yeah. So I only ever worked with one practice. I was with them from, I'm trying to think, it was about 11 years anyway. So it would have been 2003 to 2014. So I only ever worked with one practice. I don't have any experience of multiple or, differing ways and different approaches to it all anyway. So,
and when you look back, one of the conversations we have with a number of people is around looking back, certainly on careers, not that they're particularly old either, but mentors in those early years, and how grateful, perhaps you don't realize at the time, but the importance of touched on.
I realize it now. Yeah. I had two great mentors all the way along. One certainly on the sales and business management and business development side, and all that. And that would have been the managing partner of that practice. Probably wasn't the greatest accountant or auditor, but certainly from a business perspective, I learned so much from him, and was very, lucky, as I say, to meet them at the point in time when I did. And there would have been another partner there as well, who I would have learned an awful lot of from from a technical perspective and all of that.
And you're one for just absorbing information, I assume, all the time. You're just about absorbing.
Well, I am big when it's of interest to me, and I suppose business. Somewhere along the way, I suppose I always was interested in business, and I always liked conversing with business people from a young age. I suppose I would have known all the local businessmen in the town, like where I grew up and all that, and I would have always watched and listened to them, and I suppose seeing what they were doing and sort of observing, as you say, and taking it all in. We'd be very much sort of concentrated on that, and I suppose as the cards have fallen for us, like I suppose all that has stood to me too, like both in terms of the accountancy practice and I suppose the wider business interest that we have now as well.
Right. So yeah, your own accountancy practice there. Where did that sort of idea come from? And
it was more by I suppose necessity than anything else, and I suppose the heart always wanted to stay. I could have stayed with the practice I trained with and all that, but I suppose the head said otherwise. And obviously when the crash hit in 2007 and 2008, we had just moved. We had moved offices at the time, and it was the right thing to do. And within 6 months of it, the whole thing went wallop. And I suppose we would have lost quite a significant portion of the client base, and we're caught funding this, the move, which was a big move for the practice at the time. So obviously there was pay cuts and all that imposed. So I just decided that that I'd get my own certificates and license and all of that, and sort of away we go. And just started off very slowly because I was so busy with, I suppose, doing my job at the time in the office. I didn't have much time for anything else, but just when I got my certificates in practice and cert and all that, we just very gradually built it up, and I suppose started the old-fashioned way, knocking on doors to try and see could I do people's tax returns and that sort of thing. And that was how I got the business, and did that for maybe I'd say 6 years, and then fully sort of took the plunge and parted ways and set up Malone Co at that point.
And did the employer back then supportive in that?
Yeah, they were brilliant. Yeah, very supportive. And as I say, he was only they were only with me here last week, where I was able to return the favor this time by giving them some work that we had that we couldn't, and that we weren't able to deliver on. So I suppose one of my big things is we don't fall out with people. We try to do everything that we do is done with integrity and honor and all of that. And I think that's a great example. You normally hear of, when there's a parting of ways in professional service firms and that, like that, there's war breaks out more often than not. So we didn't have anything, never a cross word. And I told them, I was very upfront with them and all that about it, and they understood. And At one point in time, I actually think I had a little office underneath their office where I used to meet my own clients as well. So it actually worked very well, and they're doing very well now as well. So just one of these things that worked out. And I suppose it always, what has always sort of stood to me is, when you're honest and upfront about things in business and in life, it tends to be, you can't really go too far wrong because you're,
absolutely,
that's it.
So those early days when you set up Malone, again, looking back, would you sit there before that and look at business strategy, write a business plan? Was that, or it was more?
I'm not a business plan.
Right.
No, I wouldn't be a business plan man, Martin. I suppose my thinking with it was, I back in those days, I definitely wouldn't be as entrepreneurial as I am now, but I suppose back in those days, my margin for error would be a lot different than what my margin for error is now. Because I would have bought my own house in, I think it was December 2017. At one point in time, if it was worth half what was outstanding on my mortgage, I would have been doing very well. So I didn't have much margin for error. So before I took the plunge, I needed to be sure that I had enough to survive and pay bills. I suppose in hindsight, I probably should have done it 2 or 3 years earlier. But I suppose, as I say, I definitely wouldn't consider myself a natural entrepreneur, and it's more something that I've sort of worked on and has come into me over time. So we had enough. We had enough to survive and pay the bills, and no sooner did we branch out and get our own set up here, where our headquarters is now, is in a suburb of Dublin called Rathcoole, which is a great area and has been very good to me. And we set up by just taking a little office in the middle of the village here, and it very quickly just took off from there on me. Like when I was able to devote my time and energy to it full time.
Yeah.
So that's how it sort of took off.
And have you got that continued? I know we touched on just before we came on air, that desire to grow, because again, some people might go, I've got 3 or 4 staff, that's all I want, I'm quite happy. But you're interested in continuing to develop that.
Well, and again, that's not by design either. I suppose if you'd have told me when I set up at that time that in 10 years I'd have 4 or 5 staff and was comfortable and all that, I would have taken that. The work just came, and I suppose we're reasonably good at what we do, and we've been lucky, and I suppose what we have done well is we've recruited well, and the people that we have on board here would be extremely strong across all disciplines, and like that's what's really critical, I suppose. Like for any professional service business, you're only as strong as your people. So we the way the cards have fallen for us, we find ourselves where we are, and of course, I suppose now when we're better positioned, we work with our own sort of mentors and external consultants and all that, and we see massive opportunity like to continue. So while we're fit and willing and able, and the energy and enthusiasm is there, and it's great to see, I suppose some of our other staff are participating, I suppose, the business development side of it, and are hungry and eager to take on new clients and to take on new work. And it's not only me that sort of drives it on. So that's, very good to see too. And that sort of gives us all a lift.
So do you have other partners in the business?
Well, I'm the sole shareholder, if you want to call it that. I have a senior management team. I suppose there'd be 5 of a senior management team, and then we have a couple of other senior accountants as well, supported then by some part qualified accountants. We've 2 tax advisors, and then we have our separately branded corporate service and company formation business.
Okay,
that's the team. So I think there's 18 of them here as of now.
It's quite interesting just listening to your language, because it's very team focused. It's very, we were lucky, and I don't mean pop, but the language is very, I suppose team focused, and you talk about the recruitment and the importance of that, but probably overriding all of that is obviously you sat at the top and achieving all that yourself, but seemingly sharing that.
Well,
growth.
it's not me anymore that exclusively makes all these decisions, Martin. So I've plenty of I've plenty of other voices, and I
maybe
go
you should take more
to
credit
regularly.
then.
So it's not certainly now, and really where this practice goes from here is really going to be dependent on on the team as a whole, and not me. I can sort of drive it and sort of manage as best I can from a strategic point of view, and that. So what's critical for us now, and as I say, just before we started the recording, the HR side of it and finding experienced staff is really where the challenge lies. Obviously, when in the barren years in Ireland, accountancy practices weren't recruiting, and there was a skills shortage has sort of lingered on from that. Lots of people emigrated in that, and as we were saying, like a lot of accountants seem to be offshoring and onshoring and all of this, which leads to a lack of skilled people and talent on the market. And I suppose what we're really big on here is really the client relationship side of it as well, and really getting to know our clients and ensuring that, I suppose, people we put in front of clients, the clients are going to like them and be able to work with them for a start, and sort of, I suppose, to create the personal touch, I suppose. I think that's crucial in our profession, and particularly we'd have a fairly large percentage of our fee income would be ongoing, recurring, repetitive work and all that. So I think the relationship side of it is crucial from that perspective. So we would very much recruit with that in mind.
Okay. And to go back, and again, we touched on earlier before we started recording, back in 07, 08, when the crisis happened, again, as an outsider to Ireland, it was very much a place that had one of the probably worst impacts from that crash. You were obviously younger years then, not that you're old now particularly, but how was that at the time, and then looking back now over 12 years, how the I suppose the government and the country's moved in the direction.
Yeah. So I suppose at the time it happened so quick, and in my career prior to that, everything was just up and up and up for everybody. So there was no one took a backward step, and this just landed. And really, it was two things. It was obviously property based, and everybody was just far too indebted, and generally around property, and the whole thing just stopped to a walk. I consider it again to be quite lucky like that. At the time, I was 25 in 2007 when this started, and I qualified accountant, and I just passed my tax exams, and having the benefit, I suppose, of seeing how clients and, of course, other, I suppose, business people that I would have been acquainted with, that got caught up in it all, how they had to, I suppose, cope and deal with life and function and get on with things, when they were so far underwater. Seeing that and living through that, I definitely feel I've taken great benefit out of that. There were extremely difficult times, but people just got on with it, and how some people sort of managed to get out of, I suppose, the mess they were in. It was a credit to them, and it was real eye opening as well to see, from a professional advisory perspective, they, some of them, I suppose the moves they would have made, and the tactics they would have employed, certainly would have been better than any advice they would have gotten from a professional advisor. And so you live through all of that and see through that, and that's, I don't think we'll ever see anything like that in Ireland again, certainly not linked to property and debt. But obviously getting having the experience of it, is definitely no doubt of benefit to us at this point. So as a whole, Ireland has done, I think it'd be generally well sort of considered, Ireland has done very well, in how things have rebounded. Maybe we could have sort of not pulled the trigger as quickly as we did in terms of the moves we made, by setting up what we called NAMA, which was the National Asset Management Agency, which bought all these bad loans from the banks and then subsequently sold on all the stock to the big investment funds and vulture funds, as they're called. And we probably, if we had held firmer a bit longer, it might have worked out. But at the time, as we were saying, hindsight is a great thing. People in charge had to make the calls at the time, and if they didn't make them, who knows? Maybe we wouldn't have rebounded as quickly as we have. So all that now is fairly well behind us as well, and things have moved on a lot since then.
And looking at that rebound, if you could pick out some sort of key things that helped Ireland bounce back, would that have been government policy? Would that have been government support for new business or business development? What kind of springs to mind?
Well, I think you'd have to say that they would deserve quite a lot of credit for that. Like they attracted in the overseas money, and that got things moving again, like on transactions and all of that, and that kept professionals and all that in work, which generated sort of tax in that. Obviously, they held firm on what is, I suppose, the key to our foreign direct investment policy, like with the low tax rate and all that, and that held firm, and we continue to attract in big multinational players like that. That create sort of mass employment here, very well-paying jobs and all of that. I suppose more down to our level, at the SME level, like they did bring in a number of initiatives and incentives, like they give corporation tax breaks for people that set up new businesses and all of that. They get various employment grants and the like. So everything sort of helped with that. And I suppose most of all, though, it's really, I suppose, the will and the effort of the Irish entrepreneurial sort of community. Most Irish people would have some sort of entrepreneurial, mindset, regardless of what their educational sort of background is, and that's what keeps the thing going as well. So people just, when people were left with no alternative, if they lost work or were out of work or whatever, many of them reinvented themselves and set up little businesses of their own and all of that.
I mean, as a human race, we adapt quickly, as COVID would testify at this particular moment in time, where businesses are adapting. So would it be right in saying at the moment, you primarily, not necessarily focused, but a lot of your business, the business you do, is with SMEs? Would that be a general?
Yeah. So we wouldn't do, we certainly don't have any PLC clients. We would do audits and accounts for subsidiaries of PLCs. I suppose our largest clients would probably be maybe they might turn over 100 million and a couple of hundred staff sort of thing. But they would be privately owned. So we would only be dealing with probably 2 or 3 shareholders. There's no, they wouldn't have a complicated or a broad shareholding structure or anything like that. I suppose it would be then your private client, SME clients, Irish Indigenous businesses, and then obviously then the other side of it then is the international stuff. And it's probably, I'd say it's probably close to 50-50.
When you're servicing them, what would you, that type of client base, what would you say is keys for that part of that relationship? Is that having that open, transparent, hands-on relationship with them?
Hands-on up front, trying to give, I suppose, to try and get inside their heads and see how we can add value to their lives and to their businesses. Being proactive, being sharp, being on the ball, listening to them, not being afraid to talk to them on areas outside our, I suppose, what our core areas of expertise are. I like we would find, I suppose, that quite a lot of clients would come to us with all sorts of scenarios and all sorts of issues that's relevant to them, and we would always sort of lend our ear and hear them out, and anything that we can contribute or add to it to try and help them, we would. So we're very open and approachable like that, and that's the way we we encourage it with our staff. as well. So it's quite loose, and we're certainly not rigid in how we would, I suppose, manage our engagements with clients. And certainly, I suppose, from seeing what, in particular, our larger competitors, how they work and operate, we sort of differentiate ourselves, quite significantly from that. And of course, it's a selling point for us as well, that we now think that we can offer the same, if not a better service than our larger competitors. But here's what we can do. We do all this other work and all this other, I suppose, service levels and benefits that we can provide in that as well. And obviously we're talking here now on this, how we met was through IR Global, the international network. And we're big into, I suppose, you can never have as many friends in business. Someone said to me one time when I was starting out, and I think that's very true. So we try to, expand our network, expand our reach, all with the benefit of being able to add something and bring something to our clients. And I suppose something that we've been doing maybe in the last 2 years or so that we hadn't been doing much on up to that was really, I suppose, the deal making side of things, and being able to bring opportunities to clients and or make them aware of I suppose potential ways that they could do something or other better that we've come across in the course of meeting people like yourself through our international networks.
It's that like you say, that adding value, isn't it? And often just acting as a signpost, I guess, for clients. So like you say, they can bear their heart to you, and you might be able to help them with 5 of the 7 things, and the other couple you can shove in and push them in the direction they need to be. So you become their go-to person, I guess. So
and I think it's doing that in such a way, like, where I suppose they're not fearful, like, of ringing you up and having a conversation, and they can confide in you, and that you're fair with them, of course, as well, is the big thing, and be fair in your, with your fees and with your charges and all of that. And I'd like to think we certainly are with that, and that stands to us.
And with Ireland, the focus on, I mean, what types of businesses are, what's it kind of a hotbed for now? Is it tech, software?
So they'd always say tech and software, and obviously all the big American tech companies and that are here. I suppose getting down to our level, and it really could be like I suppose we would see a lot of, tech and software companies. We deal with a lot of e-commerce businesses, so people that are, selling online, and could be everything and anything, Amazon agents and that sort of thing. It's really a very much mixed bag. We'd see even service businesses that are setting up in Ireland that could be doing EU contracts or something like that. Obviously, we have the Brexit thing, and we've huge potential there. And it's been noticeable in the last maybe in the last month or so. We've had quite a few inquiries again from UK Brexit affected businesses that want to set up an operation in Ireland. That has been there, and has been we've had a consistent flow of inquiries from those from those types over the last 18 months or so, and we're actively working well with quite a number of them who we've helped set up and establish, and now providing all the ongoing compliance in that. So I suppose that will be a focus for us over the next months now, as that becomes more on the radar.
Yeah, okay. And the challenges of the ever-changing tax landscape, generally anywhere in the globe, how do you find that in Ireland?
Well, it's obviously a challenge, but thus far it doesn't seem to have, even though there's a lot of noise, and Ireland, I suppose, is getting a lot of, probably not so favourable commentary, from various quarters. It doesn't seem to have much of an impact from what we can see at our level and all of that. And I think, again, because we've been so consistent in our approach in general, there's been a few inconsistencies as well, but in general, we've been very consistent, with obviously with our headline corporation tax rate, which is key to it all, really. And I think once we hold that, we'll always be an attractive option for any international business that's looking to set up a EU headquarters or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And just to loop back, just one final quick question around, you're obviously growing a business at a reasonable rate. You've obviously got standards and ethos that you want, that you're now building into this business as you grow in numbers? You mentioned you're around 18 now, and there's a point where not a message gets lost, but it's harder to continue to keep that ethos in a business. Is that something you're aware of and that you're key?
Very much so, yeah. And I suppose that's where we have external support and assistance, like with all that, like, and as we grow and as we come into our next phase, we've a very, I suppose, key period ahead of us, because we do have fairly significant expansion plans now in the short term. As I say, we've actually got to the point where there's some work we're just not able to service, so we don't want that to be the case for too long. So we're in the process. We have a number of significant expansion plans, but obviously we're acutely aware that the bigger we grow, the harder it is, and the more, I suppose, we have to be clear on how what it is we actually do and how we do it and all of that. So we're nearly there with developing a full-on, much improved, I suppose, systems and procedures manual for all our people like to have, and to give to, more importantly, to new people coming into the business and into the group, like to show them like about this is how we do it and all of that, like, so it's documented, it's clear, it's easy to follow, and so we've invested quite a lot into that to get it to that point. So that's one of the things that we're doing there. Obviously I'm kind of off the tools, as to say now, to certainly a much greater extent than ever was the case before. So I'm not actively doing any work or anything like that. Like, so internally, like we'd have obviously an accounting department, we've an audit department, we've a tax department, and then we'd have a bookkeeping, VAT and payroll team as well that do all that ongoing work. So we're trying, I suppose, to maybe departmentalize a little bit better than we have. We also have a separately branded company and corporation and corporate service business, where I suppose we get access and we get to inquiries from the international community. Most of the work we do through that is for international clients.
What's the name of that?
Fusion.
Okay.
Fusion Corporation and Fusion Formations.
And to go back to the point you mentioned earlier there about, I suppose, turning away business again, that's, if I can use the word, ballsy, because often, again, in the interest of growing business and expanding, you want to hold every inquiry, but you're comfortable enough in that service is so important and being able to deliver to the client that if you don't feel you can do it and it's not the right time, that you've got and in the time of COVID, where arguably instinct is take everything you can because you don't know what's down the road. It's obviously there's confidence in what you have there, and the key that you don't underservice a client, and therefore. So
that's one side of it. There's another side of it as well that you didn't pick up on there that I would be very much close to, and I would have a strong feeling for, and that's it. We don't want to put too much pressure on our team either, and the easy thing to do would be to take it, and obviously the work has to be done. The team here, because of obviously the COVID position and that, like, we've an extremely busy last 3 months of the year. Thankfully, we've had time extensions from the revenue commissioners and from our company's office here with filings, but of course the work still has to be done. So we're going to be extremely busy anyway, and I just didn't want the pressure put on the team just at this moment in time with it. And you tend to find when you do these things, they'll come around again, and hopefully we'll just be that bit better positioned in a couple of months' time when we when we're that bit further on with our expansion and all of that.
Yeah, no, very interesting. So if listeners would like to reach out to you, LinkedIn a good starting place?
Yeah, so we're on LinkedIn, and we're active on all the social media channels, and so they've Twitter going, Facebook. We obviously get quite a lot of interest through our website. We have a live chat on our website as well. So, if anyone had questions, we get we've throughout the day we've inquiries coming in from all sorts and all places, so we're very accessible and always happy to hear and to help out if we can.
Great. We'll add in the show notes, we'll add some links to those various social media channels, and if you've got no objection, your direct LinkedIn profile, and obviously people want to reach out, have an interest.
That'd be great. Yeah, yeah.
Things in Ireland to get in touch with you, or company formations to reach out to yourself.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Always. Thanks for joining us today, Damien. It's been very informative, very interesting, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Martin. And listen, thanks again. You Perugine very kindly invited me to the Isle of Man. Was it last summer or the summer before for the TT? So. Yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but hopefully when COVID clears, we'll be able to go again sometime, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Thanks for listening, everyone.